Well, welcome to the inaugural episode of Product-Led Growth Leaders. Thomas Watkins,
Yes.
you are the host. I just get to kind of warm up the host chair for you and let you
Yeah.
take the reins. But congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Glad you could be here
And
for this.
yeah, so let's talk about what this show is. So to our friend that stumbled upon this episode here because, well, you're interested in, conversations and insights from, those leaders that are really focused on great product. But Thomas, I'll let you kind of describe what this show
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, that's right. So this show is all about innovators, and it's all about highlighting kind of the thinking process and just kind of what goes on behind the scenes for people who innovate. Like we've all kind of, we know about Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and people who are kind of like top level tech innovators in society. But I think what people don't think of a lot is that every industry has people who need to innovate and solve the problems of society. So in any industry, even in an industry that sounds boring, like trucking logistics or, refineries or something like that, there's people who need to solve problems and come up with creative new ideas and ways of doing things. And that's who I work with in my day-to-day life, in my day-to-day work as a UX practitioner. I work with product managers and product owners. And so kind of filling that gap, we, from the UX side, we say, this is how you're going to get great and how the product will be successful. They're the visionaries who say, this is the new thing that needs to exist in the world. And that's something that I kind of want to share with everybody.
Yeah. Thomas, share just a bit more about what you do before we kind of get into maybe some thought leadership on this topic.
Yeah, so I lead a UX team, and we do kind of the full range of UX, everything from research to the information architecture, all the way to the visual design. Essentially, we make things easy to use. We make it so that when someone has an idea and they say, "Okay, I need a product that does X," like maybe it helps people shop, or it helps people procure products, or it helps supplies get from one place to another. They have some idea about a product that needs to exist. What we do is help fill the gap so that, we'll say, okay, the screen flows should be like this. This is the kind of structure of the interface, and this is how it comes together to help them be successful. So, throughout my career, I've worked with folks, product leaders that have all kinds of great ideas. And that's kind of who I gel with and who my team gels with. And I said, why don't we, create a podcast and kind of highlight this and encourage that kind of innovative thinking to where people say like, oh, that's the kind of approach that goes on behind the scenes.
Is innovation, is that kind of an innate skill, or is that something that you see that people can develop?
I think people can definitely develop it because a lot of it is methods. Some people might out of the box be a little bit better at it than others because of their thinking style. But it really just boils down to what is your outlook on your industry, and then kind of how do you approach things. And a lot of that gets lost. People don't realize what kind of thinking goes on behind the scenes with great products.
Yeah. And so on this podcast, again, I'm excited for our listener who just stumbled upon this. Think about the transformation that takes place. And, kind of part of my, thinking behind my last question is I truly believe that when we surround ourselves with innovators, we become more innovative. When we are reading books about innovators and how they think, it rubs off on us. And what a brilliant opportunity for someone who really wants to work on those innovation muscles to learn from folks that are in the trenches doing the thing. And that's what this podcast is.
Exactly. It's contagious. And it's kind of like a culture. You have that kind of image of an innovative tech office where people are comfortable or they're playing ping pong and things like that. The reason why we see that is because it's a culture of innovation. And, once you kind of get, and not every office is like that, right? You could be in an office that's kind of old school cubicles and things like that, but you're still bringing methods to bear at where you are, and even affecting the culture of where you are, right? You might say, hey, I just went to a business conference and we learned about drawing this type of diagram at the beginning of projects to make sure we're all aligned on our ideas and things like that. And it's just that slow, gradual, bringing that method to the table and kind of spreading those kinds of approaches for building things in the world.
Yeah. And Thomas, what would you imagine, like, just kind of giving a preview to the content that lies
Yeah.
ahead? What are you going to be asking? Like, what do you imagine the conversations being?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask folks how people arrived at their insight, their core insight. In the book Blue Ocean, there was, it's based upon this big, massive study that they did on innovation in the past century and a half. And they looked at it at multiple different levels, at the industry level, at the company level, and at the strategic move level. And that's what they found out is the key area to focus on. That if you look at an industry, there's no successful industry overall. Like if you look at what goes on in that industry, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's key players, there's folks that do well in one year and they go out of business another year. So that's if you look at the industry level. If you look at the company level, a company could do one brilliant thing, and then for the next 10 years they have missteps, and then they're not as successful as they once were. And they found that the appropriate level was the strategic move. And you have some companies that repeatedly do awesome strategic moves, like Apple is a really good example. When they first had Macintosh, when they had iTunes, and then the devices and so forth, the strategic move. So what kind of thinking process goes into that? So I'm going to be asking people, how do they arrive at some of their ideas? Are there any kinds of methods that they want to use more often, or that they do use, what they've kind of found to be a successful approach to moving the ball forward to help meet outcomes and things like that? So it'll be just kind of a conversation that gets into, how do you look at your work and guide yourself and your team into the future.
Yeah. So for our fellow leaders that, again, are happen to be listening to this episode, hit subscribe, binge listen every single episode, and watch what kind of rubs off on you. And I suspect, Thomas, that there's likely someone listening right now that knows someone that deserves to be celebrated on this show. What might, who would be like your ideal guest? And by the way, before you describe that, very, very simple. We have a guest application. Here's what you do, is you would just simply go to this website. It's 3leaf, the number 3, leaf, LEAF .consulting. So 3leaf.consulting.
Right.
On that site, look for a link that says podcast. Then you're going to be on the podcast page, and that's where you'll see the information. If you're interested in being a guest, someone that deserves to be celebrated because of the work that they do or the innovation that they have in the marketplace. Thomas, I think you want to pick their brain.
Yeah.
and have a great conversation with them.
Yeah. I mean, so it's anyone from product owners on up to CEO, anyone who is kind of guiding the process of building the product, anyone who's sitting on a product team and making decisions about in feeling out what is the marketplace, what does the marketplace want, and how does my product fit into that marketplace need and desire. So anyone who's in kind of that space where you are guiding and leading and with vision and bringing things into existence in the technology world.
Yeah. So again, the website, just 3leaf.consulting. To our friend that's listening right now, go ahead and hit subscribe. Share this with your teams, by the way. Let's say you're a founder and you've got someone on the team that's their job is to lead on product development and growth. Send them this podcast. Say your responsibility, your job is to listen to every single episode. Thomas, and describe, you talked just a little bit about the work that you do,
yes.
But since we're having a conversation, share maybe some of the clients that you've worked with or some of the work that again, you're on the UX side of things, but there may be also the opportunity, someone's listening, say, wait a minute, I should probably just have a conversation with Thomas aside from the podcast. He sounds like a cool guy that knows some cool things and knows some cool people.
Yeah, my clients are all over the place. They're some of the big players in the video gaming space and, wow, crypto and NFT, on down to the industrial kinds of use cases, companies that are just doing digital transformations, or they are, putting some, little product out in the marketplace. But we work with folks big and small, largely startups, I can name some of them, but but they are kind of like kind of everywhere.
Yeah, excellent. All right, Thomas Watkins, listen, I'm gonna switch microphones with you now. You get the host microphone.
Awesome.
And I can't wait to listen to these episodes. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thomas,
Awesome.
Congratulations on the launch of your
Thanks.
podcast.
Thanks.
Product-led growth leaders. Again, to our listener, if you know someone that deserves to be celebrated, I would love to hear that conversation, as I'm sure you would as well. Or maybe this would be an area where you would be a great guest. We'd love to hear your conversation. Thomas, congrats.
Thanks, Josh.
The host duties are now yours.
Appreciate it.